Welcome back to the Archive Network. Aurelius here with Malik, curators of the Exploration Archive. We left Christopher Columbus last time, and as the ships prepared to leave the cove, the men understood that their discovery had irrevocably changed their world. Today we pick up where we left off. The sight of land unraveled the expedition's tension. Anticipation transformed into exhilaration. As we drew closer, the horizon revealed a low green outline, hinting at new territory waiting to be explored. Sailors squinted against the sun's brightness, their hearts racing with excitement. They knew they had crossed an ocean into the unknown. This moment was significant, a threshold into a new world, ripe with possibilities. Each wave we conquered brought us closer to history, and history has a way of shaping us all.
But let's not forget the context of their excitement. The sailors were not just crossing an ocean. They were stepping into someone else's home. Their exhilaration masked the reality of invasion. This land, San Salvador, was more than a discovery. It was a complex ecosystem inhabited by people with their own lives. The newcomers were oblivious to this profound truth.
The first landfall on San Salvador revealed pale sands glistening under the sun. The air was thick with humidity, rich with unfamiliar scents. The sailors stepped onto soil that had never known plow or plumb. This was the first contact with a world that would soon be reshaped. They were not merely explorers. They were agents of change.
They were agents of change, yes, but also of destruction. The indigenous people greeted them with grace, but their lives were about to be irrevocably altered. The newcomers offered beads and trinkets, seeking wealth in shells and baskets. Yet their notion of wealth was fundamentally different. This exchange was not merely commercial. It was an imposition of values.
Weeks later, one of their larger ships struck a reef. The sound of splintering wood echoed ominously. It was a loss, but they salvaged its timbers for shelter. A crude fort arose from the wreckage, symbolizing their attempt to impose governance. They sought to assert control over this foreign land, but the reality was far more complex.
Control? What they built was a fragile illusion. The indigenous people saw land differently, not as property to claim but as a shared space. Each misunderstanding about possession could spark a conflict. Their attempts to plant flags and build churches belied a deeper ignorance. They were not just newcomers. They were invaders reshaping relationships based on their own flawed understanding.
Each small violation of reciprocal obligations had the potential to ignite conflict. The newcomers were unaware of the delicate balance within indigenous cultures. As disease crept through the settlement, it became a silent predator. The death toll rose, and with it, the newcomers' realization that survival would be more challenging than anticipated. They had come seeking fortune, but found a harsh reality instead.
They found a harsh reality, yes. But let's not forget the human cost here. These deaths weren't just statistics. They were lives lost to neglect and misunderstanding. The newcomers were unprepared for the demands of this new environment. Their initial bravado faded as they realized that their conquest would not be as simple as they imagined.
Desertions began almost immediately. A handful of men slipped back to the ships, desperately seeking refuge from the harsh reality they faced on land. Their footsteps faded into the night, leaving an unsettling air of abandonment among those who remained. Yet, not every encounter led to violence. Some indigenous leaders opted for diplomacy, exchanging resources and negotiating temporary truces. This reflects their nuanced understanding of power dynamics, illustrating that survival sometimes demands more than just brute force.
Diplomacy was crucial, but it was not without its challenges. These leaders understood the balance of power. They recognized that the newcomers were not just a threat, but also potential allies. Their hospitality was remarkable, yet it also highlighted the newcomers' growing greed. This juxtaposition reveals how quickly relationships can shift when power dynamics are at play.
The Europeans, driven by their impulse to claim land, started writing coastlines into their logs. Each mark on paper felt like a form of possession, a way to assert dominance. They stood on the precipice of a new era, not realizing the consequences of their actions. As the ships prepared to leave the cove, the world they knew was about to change forever.
Yes, the world was changing. But the question remains, would they forge alliances or sow discord? Their actions carried weight, and the future of two peoples hung in the balance. The initial wonder of discovery was being overshadowed by the darker aspects of expansion. This moment was not just about exploration. It was about the clash of two worlds.
They stood at a crossroads, not just as explorers but as harbingers of change. We all know that their discovery was a momentous occasion, one that would ripple through societies for generations. The men grasped the weight of their choices. They'd found land, yes, but now the real challenge loomed ahead. What paths would they forge? What alliances would they form? Their decisions would define not just their lives, but the future of nations.
That's where we leave it this time. Christopher Columbus continues. The story isn't finished yet. Find the full series on the Exploration Archive, part of the Archive Network. We'll be back with the next chapter.